The Leading with Audacious Confidence podcast is brought to you by the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Ric Hellmann is a powerful leadership coach for high-performing executives that want a richer, fuller family life. He's a vet who's seen the demands of military careers take its toll on the family life, and it has driven him to work with men to give them and their families a more rewarding experience and not just success in business. You're going to want to listen to this one, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Leading with Audacious Confidence podcast. Our mission for the show is to support leaders who are climbing that ladder of success with warnings, practical tips, and techniques from leadership experts to highlight not just what it takes to be a leader in this age, but in the process, build your confidence to show up more powerfully in your role. I'm your host, Alicia Couri, founder and CEO of Audacious Concepts, Inc., a boutique consulting firm providing audacious solutions to nagging and persistent people issues clogging the revenue pipeline of your organization. From optimizing talent to reducing conflict and improving communication, our brain science, people data tools, and expert coaching help you find the elegant solution to get the job done with more ease and less stress. Now, let's join in on the conversation. On the show today, we have Ric Hellmann, founder of Purpose Coaching. Ric is a passionate leadership coach focused on transforming leaders with purpose. His approach will breathe life into those struggling to find intentional purpose, fulfillment, and engagement. Supported by his 24 years in the United States Navy, his vast experience has equipped him with a plethora, I love that word, of practical solutions to leadership's toughest quandaries. Ric holds the Certified Professional Coactive Coach from the Coactive Training Institute and is certified from the International Coaching Federation as an Associated Certified Coach. You can reach out to them at www.purposecoachingllc.com. Welcome to the show, Ric.
Thank you so much. That's a lot of letters, and you did that very well. That was very good.
I thank you for your generosity. Not so much, but prior to jumping on this this recording for this podcast, we had a conversation about leadership and confidence in leadership, and what really ignited my excitement for this conversation is how you're taking your background in leadership in the military and you're really focusing it on men and their and being dads. Like, how do you take this leadership and transition it to home life? So tell me why that was important for you to focus on as a coach.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I saw it so many times in my experiences in the military and in the Navy that children and divorces and dysfunction and all these things, and the Navy did this to me, or the Marine Corps did this to me, that I'm the reason why, or they're the reason why we're getting divorced, or I'm not seeing my kids. And actually that was just kind of a precursor to a much bigger issue of really focusing on the same things that are applicable at work or other areas of these leadership familiarities that we have. Why not do that at home and be the most valuable player in your home when we do so easily at work? Yeah, so that's what started it.
Oh, wow. So you saw this happening, but was there anything from a personal side for you that you thought, okay, I'm going to start doing this myself, and that way I'm like proof that this works?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got married later in life, and so I had the job of an E9, but the family of an E1, and they weren't matching, right? The number of hours to work, commuting, etc. And I left the Navy a little bit earlier. I had a 1, 3, and 5-year-old, and I noticed when I left and started my civilian life, I was still in the same op tempo, same cadence, and my kids were getting older. And going back to why purpose coaching was created, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And so I was missing out on summers. I only get 18 summers with my kids, right? And so as a couple years went by, I thought, okay, I'm going to peel back and really focus on what was important to me, my purpose, because I had just focused on a work purpose before that. Now I was a dad purpose, a husband purpose, professional purpose as well. So for me personally, that was what I was really forgetting about. And as they were getting older, it became more and more apparent of how important that was to me.
You know, that it's so huge when you break it down like that. I mean, it kind of hit me when you said it. I only have 18 summers with them. You know, like when you really take stock of, you know, you think, oh yeah, I have them for 18 years. But when you break it into, we only have 18 first days of school.
Yeah.
You know, that first after summer, we only have, you know, it really puts things into a completely different perspective.
For sure.
And so, yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
And I remember reading, so there's this book, The Alter Ego Effect, Todd Herman, and he talked about a client that he had that was crushing it in work. He's like, I don't need you to help me get better at work. I need you to help me get better at home.
Yeah.
Like, I needed an alter ego for when I came home, that I wasn't exhausted and I wasn't this just sit on the couch dad. You know, so he was like, you know, not everybody wants to crush it at work. Some people want it. They're already doing that at work. I mean, they don't want like coaching to crush it at work because they're already doing that. But they'd never considered, how about getting some coaching for the rest of my life? You know?
Yeah. Amen. There was a phenomenal leader I had in the Navy. And as he went up through the ranks, I think there was some evidence he probably sacrificed his family to get this professional career. And the best thing he ever said to me, we have retirements in the Navy, right? And your family sits in that front row. And he told me, he said, Rick, when you retire, you better make sure that front row is filled.
Mm-hmm.
Because in 2 or 3 years from now, when you ask a junior sailor about so-and-so, I'm gone. I'm replaced. But that family, right? And that even gives me goosebumps now. And how
I know,
much
it's giving me goosebumps.
transition we can have in that to say, wait a second, I crushed it at work, but then all these people are gone. They don't remember you.
Yeah.
Your kids, your spouse, they will.
Yeah. They're the front line. You're absolutely right. And I think it happens in with professional athletes too, because they're gone for so long in that world. They're, you know, tunnel vision, focused on winning that championship or winning, that when they do retire, and they're, again, like military, unless you go into a really full career in the military, athletes by their mid-30s, sometimes early 30s, that career is over.
Yeah.
What are you doing with the rest of that life? What are you doing with your family? So this work that you're doing is so vital. I want you to like share, if someone's listening and they're thinking, well, it's not so bad. What are some of the mindset things or the things that they should now become aware of that they're not thinking of right now as warning signs or signals that things could start going off the rails for you?
Great question. Yeah. First of all, I'll preface that a work-life balance is different to everyone's perspective, right? 30 hours might be too much for me and 50 might be for someone else. I think I would start the signs that I would ask someone to look for. So these high-performing dads, let's say, do you know your child's teacher? Who are their friends? What's their favorite show they watch before school? What did they do, right? And each individual parent or, you know, high performing, whatever you want to call it, dad, I call them, but start asking those questions. Does your spouse do all the lunch packing or et cetera? How involved are you? And then almost get like a 360 done, right? Get that feedback and that awareness going. Yeah,
Do you
I don't even
take
know
them
my
to
kids,
school
what
in the
time
morning?
the bus comes, what time the
Right.
bus drops them off, anything. One particular example, we had a Friday folder. Our kids would come home every week with a Friday folder. And I noticed again last year, I don't even know what's in this Friday folder. Like I'm not taking an active role. So my mindset, and I love that you said that, really had to look at what's important, the trajectory and the investment and being a transformational dad,
Mm-hmm.
and not just transactional, how was your day kind of thing. And that was really a good wake up sign. So the little things, I would say.
Yeah. And those are huge things. I mean, this entire interview is giving me goosebumps because it's like, because it's so true. We can get into the minutia, the phone calls and the emails and all the stuff. You wake up in the morning, you check your phone, and it's like, you get and you're completely unaware that these other people live in the house with you, and they have their life, they have lives too, and they have stuff, and are you plugged in and paying attention to the little things?
Yeah.
Okay, because a lot of people honestly talk about, okay, you're building a business or you're building a career, you might miss a birthday or two, you might miss a game or two, we can make it up. But it's not so much missing the games or the birthdays always that the kid remembers as, oh yeah, my 3rd birthday, he wasn't there. My 10th birthday, he wasn't there. Yeah, they could remember that. But what they will remember more than that, even if you miss a couple birthdays, is that you were present every day. It's like, my dad was present every day. My mom was present every day. Because she asked me not just about my, what happened today in school while she was emailing somebody else, but she actually knew my friends' names.
Yeah.
She knew what show I liked. So those are the things that really sit and resonate with kids, that even if you end up through a divorce or you end up through, your kids are still have a great relationship with you.
Yeah. And I would add to that too, the why. Why did my dad miss my 3rd birthday? Right? Was he drunk in a bar? Was he out golfing? Was he whatever, or was he being deployed? Or like you said, I mean, in the other side of the coin too, I mean, what kind of message am I sending to my children that dad will be at every single thing? Well, wait a minute. The world doesn't revolve around them either.
Exactly.
So there is some balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like for me, my priorities are God, wife, kids, then work.
Mm-hmm.
Now, yes, there are busier seasons and it may look lopsided, but if I look at a season of my life, and like I said, those priorities tracking, because I want my children to know that sometimes dad can't make every single thing. And I think we don't talk about that, because in order to be this parent, you have to be at every game and every practice. I don't subscribe to that.
I agree with you 100%, because you can't live a life productively by doing that at all. It's not possible. And you're going to burn yourself out trying. You're going to burn yourself out trying.
And then I set the example for my kids going, well, this is what life is like. It's all about me. Why aren't you here? How come you should be at everything? And so is not. And, getting further down off the topic a little bit, but like disappointment, like life's going to disappoint you. Someone's going to cheat on you, or break up with you, or you don't get the star and roll or part, or someone lied. That's life, right? Not everything can happen. And so, yeah, I think there's definitely a good balance. It's not the helicopter parents that are 24/7, but also too, like you said, you should know who lives in your house by first name.
Yeah, exactly. And a pet nickname.
Yeah, right.
No, it's and your kids are younger, which is great that you had that self-awareness and started to plug in at that time. What if someone has older children and they're now kind of getting the message like, crap, I've been that dad that's kind of not been engaged. How can I re-engage that?
Yeah, excellent question. First of all, grace, right? And it's not too late. Mm-hmm. And those may be easier to say on this end, but give yourself some grace. It is what it is, right? And then going forward, I think to name it with the child or children, and just name what happened. Hey, daddy was more focused on this, or I didn't realize that, or whatever it is, and not making excuses, but just naming and explaining it. Mm-hmm. And then I think asking some really important questions. Hey, son, is 13, 15, 17. What would a best relationship look like going forward with you? Right? Instead of going in there in this consultant mind, which a lot of us are, right? Oh, let's fix it, and I know what to do. Remain curious. Like, hey, Savannah, Daddy really wasn't there a lot, and I know that. I recognize that now. But what I would like to do going forward is X, Y, and Z. What would you like? And I think empowering these teenagers, pre-adults, and not just assuming that I know how to fix it and here's what we're going to do. I think collaborating with that child that maybe you haven't had the relationship that both of you have wanted, and being real with it. And I do it with the boys, and my daughter's getting old enough now too to get on one knee and say, hey, Daddy messed up. Will you forgive me? Sometimes they say no.
Yeah.
It's like, well, okay. I mean, we got rules in the house, and you can't, talk how you want to talk and do that, but you certainly don't have to forgive me. And anyway, empowering that child to be part of the process going forward to mend those bridges, I think is really, really powerful.
It is. Would I had a situation with my oldest who will now be 25. I think when we air this, she would have been 25. In her teenage years, she was having some really difficult challenges, and like you said, I'm the fix-it parent. I want to fix it. I want to help, and I want to fix, and came in there with all my suggestions, all my things to fix the situation. And it wasn't until a few years later that she and I did a show together to talk about, difficulties between mothers and daughters and stuff, and challenges, because we had major challenges between the two of us, and we knew the love was there. It was just we came at things from a completely different perspective. And she shared with me that you wanted to fix it, and your wanting to fix it embarrassed me, because she's like, it just made it worse. And I was like, that was never my intention. So as parents, we do have this desire to go fix everything for our children. She's a brilliant child, but she was having challenges. She wasn't going to school. She dropped out of school because she started having anxiety, and I never had anxiety, so I didn't understand what she was going through. And so I just tried to find people. I hooked her up with our youth pastors. I hooked her up with her favorite teacher in elementary school. I was like, take her out to lunch, talk to her, find out, because I'm like, I don't have the ego to think that it has to be me. But I was putting her with people that I thought respected, and she loved and respected, and that loved her, that she would open up to them. But instead it backfired, and she was like, these are people who saw me as one way, and now you're showing them that I'm this way, and it's so disappointing. So she felt like, worse, because now these people who thought that she was such a great kid now is seeing all her flaws, and it made her feel more vulnerable. So I take that, us wanting to fix the relationship instead of allowing them to tell us what they need. And I said, a long story, just agree with you.
But it's so true. My experience is they're younger, and we don't want our children to experience pain, right? We don't want them to be crying in the morning. I remember Jacob, my oldest, was learning how to tie shoes, and I had to literally sit on my hands while he struggled with shoes and gets frustrated and upset. And I'm like, well, that's part of the process in learning that and doing. And now his confidence, not only in that, we can look back and say, well, hey, buddy, he's in tackle football now, right? So when the same type of struggle comes, we have something to look back on and say, remember when you couldn't tie your shoes and you did it? But yet so many times we want to have to fix it so they avoid pain or avoid discomfort or avoid embarrassment.
Or learn how to move through, find people that can help them move through it. But what she needed was professional help, not just sit down with a teacher.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
She needed some, and that's the one I was telling you, picked up and moved to Minnesota. So she's in your country.
Nice.
But I completely believe that you need to give your children that the ability to be independent of you, to learn independence. So the coaching that you're doing to help parents, to help dads really understand not just how to connect with your kids, how to be that dad, but also how to not be the fix-it person too. I think that's huge. That really
There's
is.
also something too, that some dad's perspective, right? Well, hey, I do love my kids and I do my family, and what's your evidence? Well, I work hard for them and have everything they need. And when I was growing up, ... Well, yeah. And how do you look at your relationship with your father then? And if you really start asking the why questions, it's probably an unsatisfactory relationship. So as a dad, my job is to provide, right? I go work hard, I do X, Y, and Z, and we have everything we need. Well, but
You're looking at all the outside stuff.
I don't want you being a provider. I want you to be present. And you mentioned that before. I don't care if I have a Nintendo Switch compared to, I care that I have your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having a shift in you, I love what you said in the beginning about mindset, because without the mindset, I have a great mentor, Jason Krause, who's been a phenomenal coach and just an amazing leader himself, talks a lot about mindset, because without that, 3 months later, there's no change, right? You're just doing it because you have to, you're supposed to, or I need to, but you don't really see the end result of like, okay, that's what I want. Now let me put in the work to do that.
And it's an engagement. So like, yeah, they may want the Nintendo Switch, but looking back, they want the Nintendo Switch, but they would have also liked you to play with them at some point too, not just give me the thing and walk away. Oh, look what my dad's giving me all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I have zero relationship with him, like when I look at my relationship with my father, he was more the authority, right? He was the authority. I didn't cross the authority. I didn't cross it.
Right.
And it wasn't until I was actually an adult that we developed a relationship. And I think that school of or that generation of, I'm the parent, you're the child, and there's no real relationship other than do as I say, and it all will be well with you.
Right.
You will live.
Yeah.
And my constant threat was to go to school with no teeth, because I was a little smart mouth. So you shall live and you shall keep your teeth. I think that needs to evolve into, more, not a friendship. We're not talking about being your child's best friend either, because there are those who have that thought, well, I'm my child's friend and they call me by my first name and all this kind of stuff. That's going over, that's swinging the pendulum way too far. There is the authority, but we also have to learn how to love our children. Do you think? Like, how do we love our children and be intentional?
Yeah. Another great question. And I love the word intentional, right? It's not winging it on the way home from work, or it's not like, oh, shoot, I should do something. One of the things that me and my wife incorporate is we have a calendar reminder that goes off every 17 days. And it's just because. Hey, I think yesterday I wrote little notes to everyone, why I love you, just because. And what we really try to do is not say, I'm proud of you only after something good, right? I'm proud of you that you got mad today. I'm proud of you regardless. So maybe it's just a little note. I think one day, just because we went to go get Pokemon cards, what? Because I love you. And really understanding that what their worth comes from. It's not anything in the what category. What they did or didn't do, no, it's all in the who category. You are my son, you are my daughter, period. So what does that look like? I mean, that's the 60,000 foot level, but being intentional. Maybe you can't be present every day at the bus stop, but maybe you're one day a week. I don't know. I had this when Jacob was first born. Again, I was climbing the ladder, doing the Navy thing. Rebecca was like pregnant with Caleb, and she had to go to some appointment, I think for an OB appointment. And I was all upset that I was going to be so inconvenienced to be with my almost 2-year-old son. He had oatmeal that day. And what happened was I had a special moment with my little guy that was unintentional. But ever since then, I advised my team, we called it oatmeal. Hey, call the office one day and tell me you're going to be an hour late. The Navy will move on. We will, trust me, no war will be lost because you didn't come to, right? We all have this mentality that the organization can't roll on without us. And we started calling it oatmeal. When's the last time you had oatmeal? And it was that encouragement to be intentional. Hey, Thursday morning, boss, I won't be in because I'm having oatmeal. And maybe it was going to their bus stop. Maybe it was just being home with them watching cartoons. And one last thing is that I know some dads that I coach with think I've got to take my kid to Disney World. I've got to take them to the Rainforest Cafe. No, you don't. I bet if you just sat down and watched their favorite cartoon with them and said nothing, that right there might mean the world because you're present with no device, in your pajamas, whatever it is, with your child watching their favorite cartoon or something. So
there are two things that popped into my head. I had to write it down because there are two things I want to ask you about. I love that, by the way. And I think it's a way that leaders at work, so if you're a CEO, you're in the C-suite, how you can really bring a culture of family into your organization that honors people who have families, to be able to do that, to say, you know what, you've worked hard this week, everybody, we've hit our goals, take a little time in the morning to spend with your kids, or leave early, everyone, and go enjoy some family time. It doesn't always have to be the keg, Friday afternoon keg, and stuff, like really start helping people engage with their families more, because so many people, especially after COVID, are working 2 jobs or something, and they're rushing from here to go there and everything. And so recognize who has families, who's a single parent, single mom, single dad, that might need that extra little boost to spend some time with their kids. But what I wanted to ask is, we see these tear-jerking videos of when parents come home from deployment and the kids, they surprise their kids and they're all excited and everything to see, and everybody's crying. And I love watching those videos, I get to cry and everything. But what happens the next day, right? Are they back off doing their own thing? They've surprised their kids, but are they continuing to nurture that relationship? Or they're like, okay, next deployment. Like, what is happening? You come home, you do this video. Do you have any feedback on that? Do you see that happening? Like, everybody excited to see them, and then a week later, it's like, well, I need to go. When's the next deployment? When's the next thing?
Yeah, no, I retired 4 years ago, so it may be different, but there's a lot that takes place, right? You come back from that deployment, or sometimes if one individual deployed, they would get a 6-month break. So they would be there in Afghanistan or Iraq for a year. They'd come back for a vacation and get to go back. But being intentional to let that service member integrate back in that family, so they have time off, half days, et cetera, getting them back in, and how they choose to use that, I don't know. What comes to mind is, imagine this. Imagine your child is you, and you receive a paycheck. You get paid every 2 weeks. So throughout the year, right, you're paid pretty consistent, and your money kind of ebbs and flows. But imagine if you were paid once or twice a year, this huge, big lump sum, but you didn't know how much or when, and you didn't know when the next one was going to come. I use that as the same thing with investing with that love and that being present with your child. If you're putting nickels and dimes every day and investing in that child, well, that there's some security in that money.
Amortization.
Yeah, right. You're earning interest on that, right? And all money doesn't expire at midnight and the next day you start at zero. But if you're gone and then one big moment that draws these cheers, well, that's a huge deposit. But to your point, you don't go get sucked back right in again and then make a deposit months later. It's those constant deposits that are consistent. I think that's the key. So when that service member does come back, yes, they've been gone for months, if not a year sometimes. It's being intentional, like you'd said, of all right, now what's my cadence? What's my op tempo going to be now? Because it's so easy. Well,
because they could get restless at home very easily.
Yeah, exactly. And when I was talking about being home with Jacob, I was all upset of what I was going to miss out at work and what was going to happen to me and this, that, and the other. And my little guy was right here. And I wasn't thinking about what he was going to get. I was thinking about what I was going to lose.
Right. Oh, that's huge. That's huge right there. And that's why I wanted to bring that in, because when you mentioned, that you had to stay and have oatmeal with him and you were upset about that's what that question brought into mind for me, is like, when they do come home, do they have this idea of, I need to get back with my peeps?
They certainly could. I mean, there's some mentalities that are go, go, go. There are some families that can do 8, 9 deployments in the 20 years, and that family is good, and that's how they roll and they do things. And so it's again how that service member, I think, takes advantage of what's put in front of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then the other question I had was around COVID. We all went through this kind of stuck at home together. How do you think we could, moving forward, take advantage of the fact that we had to be, we had to be together all that time, and so many people were going stir crazy and everything, but there was this you have to be around your kids and everything. How can we continue to as parents have that, but know that we can't be physically together? I don't know if I'm making sense with that question.
Yeah. So someone's working from home.
If you're working from home, kids are back out to school now, but to recapture some of that, how can we intentionally recapture, but in a positive way, being together?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's almost everyone got sick of each other because they're home so much, right? And I don't call it working from home. I call it living at work, right? Because the work is now at your desk. But I think one thing that comes to mind is the commute that was lost, right? So think about it. You worked X number of hours, but there was drive time.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to that drive time? Did it just get added in your day and you started earlier? Yeah. So I think it's finding those edges and those curves of the time that existed and going, wait a minute, I wouldn't be doing this right now. I actually have a lunch break, or I'd be doing this. And what does that mean with your family? And I think putting a schedule out. I mean, I know I miss a schedule. I know I miss routine and order and kind of what is to be known. So if you live at work or you work from home, whichever you want to call it, and you do have kids that stay home, which I did, my daughter was at home, we had time scheduled. Daddy's working right now, and then when Daddy's done, then we did our thing. So I think really getting deliberate and clear on what a schedule would be with that extra time, especially.
Yeah, that's great advice. Any tips you have? I mean, you've given sprinkled tips in all throughout this interview, because, and I believe that everything that you're sharing not just builds confidence in someone at home, but that will translate, because we're whole people and we bring our whole selves to work. So if we can create more harmony, more love, more giving and receiving at home, where our cup is being filled, then when we go to work, we're going to work as these whole and filled individuals as well. We're not, coming to work mad and, can't believe what the kids did today and all this stuff. And nothing's perfect, of course.
Right.
But when you build intention into this, how you're living your life, how you're leaving work and appearing like how I am appearing at home. Who am I at home? Who am I because I always talk about, curating who you are, like show up as the person you want people to experience because it's inside of you. So you need to show up for that at work, at home too, not just drop everything and like, oh,
yeah,
I'm done. I'm done for the day. Nobody talked to me. I've had a day. And no, you have to show up for them too. So how, let's build confidence in that. How can you really be mindful and be present of showing up at home the way you show up at work for everybody else?
Yeah. Great question. I think that it's like this chain, right? Work, dad, spouse, softball player, author, whatever it is. And if one of those links is rusted, you're only gonna be as strong as that weakest link, right? So to your point, the holistic approach I love. I guess the best way I would look at that is a brand. How are you showing up? Right. And if you don't know how you want to show up and what you are, well, then how can anyone else around you expect that either? Right. McDonald's, Seattle, Orlando, whether you like it or not, when you walk into Seattle, McDonald's, Orlando, you know what you're getting, period. Right. Mm-hmm. What kind of dad do they get when Rick shows up?
I love that you said the brand. Yeah.
You got to have a warm up. I learned this again from a great mentor. Right. All right, I'm going to walk in the door. I know I got 50 million things and you can start. That's why that commute can be so good. Radio off. All right, let me get it out. But I need to show up on brand, and I'm brand for dad as, I'm bringing hell, humble, energy, love, levity, right? That's what I want to bring as that dad, right? And I know what I'm not on my brand. I'm a pill. I'm prideful, impatient, and lazy. Ooh. So now that I know that, wait a minute, I gotta warm up. I'm getting ready to come home from my second job, right? That's the more important job, hopefully. Mm-hmm. I gotta do that positive stuff. And I know they're gonna say this. Okay, what am I gonna say when Savannah asks for the 5th time if she can have candy? No, she can't. And all right, I've got to do that. So I think at the end of the day, I gotta know, I gotta be clear on what my dad brand, my husband brand is. And I gotta show up. Yeah. I gotta show up on brand.
I love that because I talk about your personal brand all the time. But making sure that your brand is consistent at home, at work, wherever
Absolutely.
you go, it is consistent. And back to the alter ego effect again, is that he talked about, having your tokens, having your little rituals to switch. So even if, I'm coming off my CEO, taking off my CEO hat, and I'm putting on my dad hat. What does that look like? All right, I take off the suit. I put, take that time to undress from that brand, my CEO brand, and dress the dad brand. And as you're dressing the dad brand, you're repeating to yourself, what does the dad brand look like? What does it do? Who is this dad?
Yeah.
And you bring the energy to it.
Yeah. And I would even go further that your brand can be the same across the board. It just shines a different perspective. I'm still hell at work, hell with my kids, hell with my wife. It just looks differently, right? I mean, how I talk and present, that's across the board. And you mentioned the confidence part too, which I love, because we can go into work, and if we're killing it at work, right, it's the same stuff. What were you doing? What were you saying? What were you being at work? Do the same things, but do it on brand of what you've decided is important, how you want to show up, right? And I love what you said, because we lost it during COVID. There was no commute. There was no down. There wasn't give daddy 5 minutes upstairs and physically changed, right? I had a friend that was a Navy corpsman, and when he got home, he took a shower
Mm-hmm.
to literally wash that, and then he was ready to go. And that's what he did as a warm-up to get present and be on brand with his wife and kids.
Yep. So you can create these little rituals to help you change state, as Tony Robbins calls it. You're changing state. You're going from one state to the next state, but you're staying the core of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the reason I love this conversation so much, and we've had so many reschedules to do this, and I'm so glad it worked out. It's because we're talking about purpose, like doing things on purpose. You know, your coaching is all about being intentional and doing things on purpose, understanding your why you're doing things. Like, not stop just living through life by living through life.
Yeah.
You got 18 summers with your kids. How are you taking the most advantage of that? And time seems to be accelerating. So, you know, it'll seem like 5. You know, it's 18, but it'll seem like 5. So I really appreciate us finally getting the time to do that. You agreeing to do this interview. If there's anything else you want to share in the last couple minutes that we have, the floor is yours.
Thank you. The last thing I would say is, I heard a quote, and I may slaughter it or kind of change a little bit differently. But if you're, how did it say? I think it was, I forget who said it, but if you want to get different results, I can't remember the quote now. I'll have to send it to you. Mm-hmm. Basically, if you want to go where you've never been, you have to do what you've never done.
Right.
And so if you're tired and whining and the victim and woe is me, that's great. Have your pity party with these 2 rules. Don't invite anyone and end it at midnight. And then get a coach, get accountability partner, get an Audible book. I'm going through David Goggins right now. Right? Find something that changes your trajectory, because right now it's 1%, but in 10 years, wow, it's a completely different story, because it's not just about you. And for my dads out there, the things, there's sky's the limit for you, for the change that you want. So get clear and just get out there and get on purpose. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. This has been a different interview I'm always interviewing people about business and elevating in business, and, you know, what can you do next? And so, having the opportunity to look at this leadership and confidence through the lens of, fatherhood has been an honor and a privilege. And I thank you. Because I don't ever want to forget, you know, leave out, because confidence starts at home. It really does, with your children. And when you build that with your kids, it really allows them to grow up to be confident individuals. I have a quick thing, and I forgot. I was so into this that I almost forgot. I have rapid fire questions for you.
Sure.
Let's do the rapid fire.
Okay.
So, this is a little fun. So what's the biggest leadership mistake that you ever made or was a victim of?
I made the assumption with a sailor that I understood the evaluation process, and I didn't. And it had a huge impact on his career negatively, because I confused knowing a lot with knowing everything.
Ooh, that's big.
Yeah.
What's the best leadership advice you've ever gotten and you still implement today?
I would say, I go back to that gentleman that mentioned that said, make sure that front row is filled. Make sure at the end of the day you work hard, but that if family's there, family's before work.
Nice. If you were a castaway on a deserted island, what are 3 things that you hope would wash up on shore or be airdropped to you, and it cannot be a phone?
A Bible,
one of the 3 can be.
My wife, and DirecTV to watch Minnesota Vikings.
The satellite, a hookup, electricity.
Something. And a battery source, yeah.
All right, so this is a tricky one. This always gets people. It's, if you were a song, or song title, what would it be and why?
It's My Year
Mm-hmm.
by Aaron Cole. He's a Christian rap artist, because he talks about, hey, this is my year, and every year is my year. It's my best year yet.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. Finally, you mentioned what you're reading now. So what are you reading now? Or you can give me your top three favorite titles.
Okay. So I'm actually listening to David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me, which is just a great story. I'm reading Dad in the Mirror at night. And next in line is She Calls Me Daddy. So I would say those, if you need to listen to something or read something, those three.
Nice. Thank you for those. Really appreciate it. And thank you for making the time to have this conversation with me. I loved it.
You are so welcome. I was not going to miss this for the world. Like you said, we've bounced back and forth, and I felt I could do this for hours. It just seems so natural, so much fun.
Nice.
And thank you for getting the word out, and for dads, right?
Yep.
Dads are important.
It's important. Thank you. They are important. And I thank you for the work that you're doing. So for those of you out there that are leaders, it's important for us to, build self-awareness, to learn how to lead ourselves so that we can lead our teams, and our teams include our families. So we can lead ourselves, lead our teams, and lead our organizations with audacious confidence. Thank you so much for joining us. Check out Ric. You can go and check him out on LinkedIn. So their website, again, I just want to make sure I said it. It's purposecoachingllc.com. Thank you, everyone.